Let's Talk with Keith Spera is underwritten by the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Foundation.
I'm Keith Spera from NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune. Welcome to Let's Talk. My guest today first met an unknown singer named Jimmy Buffett in the French Quarter in the 1960s. Their music industry careers eventually intersected at the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival, where Buffett was a mainstay from 1989 until his death last year. The 2024 Jazz Fest celebration of Jimmy Buffett culminates on Sunday, May 5th, when his Coral Reefer Band and special guests once again bring Margaritaville to the fairgrounds. Here to talk about all things Jimmy Buffett and Jazz Fest is the festival's longtime producer and director, Quint Davis. Quint.
Hello, Keith.
Welcome to Let's Talk, sir.
Thank you. Let's talk.
You wore a very appropriate Jimmy Buffett-esque shirt today.
Yeah, and this is a hat that he wore. Not this actual hat, but but this is a hat that he wore, the Jazz Fest hat with the marcher. Yeah, so I went all Jimmy today.
Well, you should be barefoot then, because he often performed barefoot.
That's true. He did perform barefoot.
But the feet got very dirty that way, so you
I don't know. He had a little rug.
He had a little rug.
Yeah.
So, do you remember the circumstances of how you first met Jimmy? And it would have been the late 60s. You weren't involved. There was no Jazz Fest yet. Jimmy wasn't a star. Do you remember how you first crossed paths with him back in those days?
I have a memory of on Esplanade down almost to the end of Esplanade, across from the Mint, the museum.
The old Mint, yep.
He had a white Ford Falcon that was kind of hot rodded up, right? And he was still on the Gulf Coast, and he drove to New Orleans and went in a little parking lot down there off of Esplanade, and somehow that's how we met up there and rode around in the car. I don't remember what else.
Well, it was the late 60s, so the fact that you may not remember, you know. You and Jimmy, I think, were both, yes.
Yeah, but I never forgot that. That's how I first met him.
So if Jimmy hadn't driven a hopped-up Ford Falcon, the entire history of Jazz Fest may have been different.
May have been different.
May have been different. Did you guys stay in touch then through the years as he kind of built his career?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
And because he and the festival were sort of, at parallel points in terms of how big it was and how successful it was. And he started going faster than us. but he would keep coming to play. He loved New Orleans. He got a lot of his inspiration from here. He wrote a lot of his songs here. But so the festival was just his favorite thing. That's where Margaritaville lived, so to speak, with that audience. So
yeah, it was his happy place, one of his happy places for sure.
So he wanted to come play, and he helped us grow. Yeah, because he got bigger than we did, sooner than we did. And my goal was to pay him at least half of what he was actually making. and every time I said, okay, this is all I got. Next year, I knew what he was making. I'm going to pay it. And then by next year, I paid what it had been, and he was double that.
He was already making that much more in his real life.
All the way till the end.
There was a great photo we just showed of you and Jimmy at the 1986 Jazz Fest, hanging out at the Municipal Auditorium for a Neville Brothers concert. And that was before he even officially played the festival. I think he made his festival debut in 1989. So he was coming to hang out with you and have a good time even before he played the festival, correct?
Yeah, that's how I met Ed Bradley.
From CBS, from 60 Minutes, the 60 Minutes correspondent.
Hanging out with Jimmy at the dock on the river where the riverboat was. And at that time there was a big fountain there, and it was a working fountain, and I can't remember who the ladies were that got in the fountain, and whether or not Ed got in the fountain with them, but there was fountain activity.
Fountain activity.
Yeah, and so Jimmy hung with Ed a lot, and we hung out a lot too.
And all those years later, both Ed and Jimmy earned the right to drive a golf cart out at the fairgrounds. I think they both had golf carts at a certain point.
They did. They were employees.
They were employees.
They were employees. They were covered by insurance.
So the first time when Jimmy first played in '89, and like I said, you guys have been friends at that point for a couple of decades. How did you go about asking him to play? Was it because you've been friends, but now the relationship was moving into a professional realm where you were going to actually play? So was it a casual thing? You're like, hey Jimmy, would you want to play, or did you go through his agent and make it all official? Do you remember how that transition happened from him hanging out to him actually playing the festival?
I would say all of the above.
All of the above.
Because we were friends, and he knew the festival, and I said, man, you need to play. Mm-hmm. He said, yeah, I want to play. And then I had to circle back. Howard Rose is his agent, the only agent he's ever had. I mean, in all these years, the only agent he's ever had. So then I had to get official.
Had to get official.
Yeah, I had to get a contract, make a deal.
Right.
And pay him.
And pay him. But then, so many years when he wasn't playing, he would just come and hang out at the fairgrounds. I don't know if he did it every single year, but a lot of years.
A lot of years. He would come, put on this hat. Not
this hat, but
not this actual hat. But look at the picture.
There you go. There's a picture of Jimmy
in this hat.
Yeah, right. Buying. He's in this picture. He's getting Prejean gumbo.
That's good timing. Talking about the hat. He's wearing the hat.
He's wearing the hat.
Yeah, no. He would come, put on the hat, sunglasses, and go out and walk around the festival.
And he looked like
a guy.
Looked like everybody. Yeah, just about every other guy in his 60s. That was out there at the fairgrounds in shorts and a t-shirt and a baseball hat. Yeah, that picture of him getting the gumbo at Prejean's, I took that in 2014, where I saw him zooming by on a golf cart on the track, and then he stopped and he got off, and I'm like, let's see, where's Jimmy Buffett going? So he marched across the fairgrounds. Not a single person recognized him,
really?
Including the woman that sold him the gumbo at the booth. Like, I talked to her afterward, I'm like, you realize that was Jimmy Buffett you just sold gumbo to? And she's like, no, I didn't know that. I'm like, that was Jimmy Buffett. So, so he could be totally anonymous. He could be just a guy in the crowd and have a good time.
Yeah, so he wasn't just at the festival, like a lot of artists play. Mm-hmm. He was a part of the festival, and that's different. The Neville brothers were heart and soul of the festival. Mm-hmm. They closed the festival. That's a special relationship. Jimmy was the same way. He was heart and soul of the festival, and actually became part of the festival. He bookended the pandemic.
Yep.
He played the last set. Well, actually, it can't be the last set.
It was the second to last set.
The trombone shorty,
right.
Yeah.
Right.
So he played on the last show before everything shut down, and then when we came back in 22, he played that last set again.
That's right. That's right. He was there for very important ones. And if you're just tuning in, my guest today is Quint Davis, the producer and director of the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival. Talking about Jimmy bookending the COVID years, he also played an important role in that first post-Katrina Jazz Fest as well.
That's right.
The story that I've heard is that when you guys were deciding to have a Jazz Fest in 2006, much of the city was still in ruins, didn't have a whole lot of hotel rooms, but the mindset was, we have to do a Jazz Fest to show the city's coming back. And you asked Jimmy, and initially he was reluctant to do it, right? Yeah,
he's such a smart guy. He was really, it's hard to really process the fact that he's gone, actually. Because it's just like, well, some months have gone by, Jimmy's on some island somewhere,
right.
And he'll be coming back through New Orleans. But, what would you say?
The 2006, he initially was reluctant.
Well, he was the first one that I talked to, because I knew him the best, and I knew his draw at the festival. And what he said was, I don't think so. I said, you don't think so? He said, no. He said, if I play my people are going to come. And if the city's not ready, if the hotels aren't open and they're not ready, and just in general the restaurants aren't open, the clubs aren't open, that word is going to go out. And that'll do the opposite of what you want to do. You want to show that New Orleans is back, right? And if people come and it's not, it'll set it back. I said, Jimmy, we got to do it. That's intelligent logic.
Right. No, but I mean, he was very committed to quality. I mean, he wanted to give his people a good experience, and I understand his logic that, if people come and the city's not ready, the word will get out that New Orleans
isn't ready,
still a mess, right? Yeah. But ultimately, you knew that for the morale of the city, there had to be a jazz fest that year.
There had to be a jazz fest.
There had to be a jazz fest. So he comes in, and he came. Well, I said he played. The week after Katrina, he played at Wrigley Field, like a week after the storm, and he played the song City of New Orleans at that Wrigley Field show as a tribute to New Orleans a week after the storm. When he came back and played Jazz Fest, the first one after Katrina, he opened his set with City of New Orleans. And he almost lost it. He got very weepy up there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the first having that festival in April, there hadn't been but a month or two when there was still water in the streets. But it worked. He was the first one, Jimmy, and then it was Dave Matthews, Paul Simon, Bruce Springsteen, and
well, right there, that's your top.
That's pretty good.
That's pretty good, right there.
That's pretty good.
I mean, considering everything you guys, the festival had been through and the city had been through, to get that lineup for that first one after the Katrina was amazing. And then Jimmy was a regular. I mean, he was playing every couple of years. He did an acoustic thing out there one year that was really interesting. I thought something very different. And then I remember him popping up with. He got up on stage with Lyle Lovett one year and sang "If I Had a Boat."
Right. You saw that?
I saw that. Yeah.
Oh man,
I've been going to that festival a long time. Yes, indeed. I saw that.
No, that was magical. Yeah.
That was in 2000. He
got up with the Nevilles.
Got up with the Nevilles. Got up with Dave Matthews and Tim Reynolds one year. It was He had a great line. He walked out on stage with Dave Matthews and Tim Reynolds. There's a vast crowd out there, and he looks at Dave and goes, "Too bad you can't draw a crowd, man." So he was having fun. He had a good time out there, it seemed like.
Yeah, he had a good time. Yeah, I didn't know if Dave knew how big Jimmy was and how big Jimmy was at the festival. Because they were doing their set, and he says, "Well, we have a surprise for you," whatever. Jimmy Buffett walks out on stage and the crowd goes berserk. They get the biggest response of anything in his whole show.
Oh, that's funny. I remember, and there was the year he jumped up with Alan Toussaint. Alan, of course, is impeccably dressed in a suit and tie, and Jimmy gets up there in a yellow T-shirt and orange shorts. It's like they were the odd couple, but it worked. There they are. Yeah,
there they are.
Yeah. And I said, I think 18 months later, Jimmy sang at Alan's memorial tribute.
Yep.
So, I mean, that right there just shows how deeply ingrained in the local music community he was. The fact that he was one of the guys that sang at Alan Toussaint's funeral.
Yeah.
I mean, it was real. I mean, his affection for the music here was real.
His affection for New Orleans, he was part of us, I would say.
He absolutely was. He absolutely was. If you're just tuning in, my guest today is New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival producer and director Quint Davis. His fandom of New Orleans translated to Saints fandom. He was a Saints super fan.
Yeah.
He didn't wear the whistle on his head or anything like that, but he was very much a Saints super fan. So you and he went to a whole bunch of games together, it seems like. The NFC Championship game in 2010, where the Saints beat the Vikings to go to the Super Bowl. He flew in his own plane from Bora Bora in the Pacific to make it to that game.
South Pacific.
From the South Pacific to make it to the game. You and he, on your way to the Dome, came across a tailgate party where some people were hanging out.
Oh, yeah.
You know where the story's going? Why don't you take it from there?
Well, there's a certain group that tailgates under the overpass. And they're a rowdy group. They're a happy group, but they're a rowdy group. So, I don't know, we were riding by and we stopped, They said, they brought us, said, come on in, come on in, come on in. And was, plying us with drinks and food and stuff like that. And that was when the Saints had that defensive coordinator with the hair that stood up.
Right.
And the guy had a hat like that. I mean, it wasn't a hat.
Visor, like a visor?
No. It was just a headband with all the hair sticking up. And he put it on Jimmy. and somehow they got him to do a song. I guess Margaritaville.
It may have been a trade, I think. Yeah. Maybe the hat for for a song. Jimmy sang for a hat and a bowl of gumbo, probably. So
bowl of gumbo.
That's awesome.
And then we moved on.
And then you moved on.
And he was singing the anthem. He didn't sing the anthem for that game. Mm-hmm. Actually, that game he was in a suite with me, and we couldn't. When that kick went through
to win the game.
Yeah. And said, "We're going to the Super Bowl." That moment. Jimmy and I, we were in no tongue, but we were embracing, and it was a great moment for the city, for everybody. But I'll never forget that. The ball going through, we're going to the Super Bowl. Jimmy and I went, yeah!
Oh, it was huge. I think I wept. Yeah, it was a huge moment. And then did you went to the Super Bowl with him and stayed in his suite for the Super Bowl?
Correct, yeah.
Gotcha. So that was a good trade-off. He also played a huge role in getting the Jazz Fest documentary made, the Grammy-winning documentary that came out in 2022. You guys were looking for a producer for the film, and he invited you to go to a concert in Denver where a certain Hollywood figure was going to be, that you were able to talk to. Frank Marshall, I think, was going to be at that show. It was an Eagles Jimmy Buffett show in Denver.
In a stadium, sold out stadium.
Sold out stadium. So Jimmy invited you to come to the show and said, hey, Frank's going to be there. And then what happened from there?
Well, to go back, we had three producers approach us to do a documentary. Mm-hmm. And I produce festivals, not movies.
Right.
So I didn't really know, who was substantial and, what about each one. And I talked to Jimmy about it, and he said, well, hold off, I know somebody that I'm gonna call up and I think you should talk to. So then, just as you said, they were gonna have this show in Denver and Frank was gonna be there. I mean, I always go to some shows because I'm fun.
It's your work. It's work.
Yeah, it's work. Jimmy's shows are fun. Jimmy's after shows are fun.
I bet they are.
So I went there, and I don't know how much tequila we had drunk, but through the medium of tequila.
The medium of tequila.
I met Frank. And actually, I wasn't asking him to do anything. I wanted his consultation. I wanted his advice on the three filmmakers. Mm-hmm. What did he know about them? Who was good? Who was real? Who wasn't real? So we went through that, and he said, "No, this is nothing." He said, "This guy, he's real. He does something." Uh-huh. And he was supposed to get the money, which then he didn't. But then at the end of the thing, Frank said, "This is ironic right now." He said, "Well, would you want me to get involved?" I said, "Frank, that's like asking me would I want the Rolling Stones to play Jazz Fest. Would I want Frank Marshall involved in our little documentary?" "Yes, would." He said, "Well, I won't get in the way." I said, "Well, okay, but you can get in the way if you want."
All you want. We had this guy that did Jurassic Park movies, Color Purple, a whole bunch of stuff. I mean, huge producer. So,
yeah, Indiana Jones.
Indiana Jones films, yeah, big movies. So,
so as it turned out, he ended up doing it because the guy that we thought was going to do it, that he thought was going to do it and get the money, he crapped out. He didn't have the money, and so Frank had told me at the beginning, "I have a documentary company, but they're too busy right now to do this." And then the poor guy that was the head of the documentary company, this landed on top of him. So it ended up really being produced by Frank in his company.
And Jimmy was listed as an executive producer and was featured throughout, which now in hindsight, now that Jimmy's gone, that is kind of nice that film exists and shows his relationship with the festival. I mean, it's a great document of that.
Yeah, it's really, I mean, Frank and Jimmy were, really good friends. I mean, really good friends.
Yeah.
And that's how we got together, as you said. They,
they're a great team. I mean, yeah.
In the documentary, there's like a series of mini documentaries, right? There's a thing about the Mardi Gras Indians that's not just at the festival, but it's out in the street. There's a whole thing about jazz funerals. Well, Jimmy was kind of a mini doc in the film, which was great. They showed him, early when he just got to New Orleans, and he had to stay there because they didn't have the money to go to California. He said, so I hippied out right here in New Orleans.
Hippied out.
He hippied out. So he helped the whole process.
If you're just tuning in, my guest today is Quint Davis, the producer and director of the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival. Jimmy changed the complexion of the festival in a couple of different ways, but one of them was that he made the final Sunday a much bigger deal than it had been historically, right? I mean, when you booked him on that last Sunday for the first time, that really increased the crowd size, huh?
Oh yeah, it changed the whole dynamic. Because by the time you get to the last Sunday, everybody sort of has their ticket already, or they've already been to the festival, and it's a lovely day, and it's the end of the festival, which is emotional for people and stuff. But it wasn't a big draw. I put Jimmy on it, and like you said, now it changed. Now we had 50,000 people, maybe more than 50,000 people came on that last Sunday. And so once we did that, then I had to start getting other acts that would draw 50,000 people, because I didn't want it to fall back down.
Right. So yeah, you had like Mumford & Sons and things like that on that last Sunday
now we do that
to boost it up.
And now we're going to have Jimmy, so to speak. When he was real sick, he said, I don't want a tribute and I don't want a funeral. He said, just keep the party going. So that's his direction. That's what we're going to do. But in New Orleans, we don't mourn, so to speak. We celebrate. We celebrate a life, a great life. We have a jazz funeral. So that's what we're doing. We're doing celebrating Jimmy Buffett with the whole Coral Reefer Band. Actually, more than the Coral Reefer Band, because 2 or 3 people who had been in the band over the years are coming back it'll be a huge band to play in it. Sonny Landreth will be in it.
The guitar player from Southwest Louisiana who often played. Yep.
He's an honorary
reefer? An honorary reefer? Yes.
Yeah. Coral Reefer.
Coral Reefer, yes, indeed. So it's going to culminate on that last Sunday, the tribute with the Coral Reefer Band playing and special guests.
Special guests.
You guys are going to install Jimmy in the Ancestors field. Is he going to join the Ancestors this year? Or are you going to do a representation of him out there in the field or not?
We are going to Buffetize Jazz Fest 2024.
Buffetize?
Yeah, in many, many ways. I don't think I spill them all now. I don't know. But he surely will be an ancestor of the festival.
Surely.
He'll be up there with Mac, Dr. John, Alan Toussaint, Jimmy.
Ed Bradley? Ed Bradley was an ancestor, I think, right?
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, Ed Bradley, yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, you've done this festival since the beginning, so 53 years. And yeah, you do something for that long, you're going to lose people along the way, a lot of people that you're close to. And Jimmy was the latest. And yeah, I mean, obviously it's kind of hit you a little harder than others because you guys have been friends for 50 plus years, right? Yeah.
I'll tell you a little story if you have the time.
I got 3 minutes. Go ahead.
Okay. So when we were hanging out, Jimmy was still living in Key West, right? And I went down to stay with him and hang out. So he said, let's go fishing. I said, okay. He's going to go bone fishing. I didn't know what that was. But I had fished when I was a kid at camp. I mean, I knew how to handle a rod and reel. I knew how to cast. I felt, oh yeah, I can do this. So he gets in the boat and goes out in the Gulf, I guess, to like a sandbar. Anchors the boat. He said, get in the water, walk out to like, the water's up to here.
To your waist, yeah.
Yeah, and because the sand is, it's not deep right here. And then cast out from there I said, oh, okay, I'm going to be catching fish in Fishland.
In Fishland, you're in the water with him.
Yeah. So he's casting, he's catching, I'm casting, I catch one. And I'm like, oh man, this is great. And I'm working on pulling it in and pulling it in. And very calmly, he said, you caught a shark. I'm like, I caught a shark. I'm standing up to my ass in the water. He thinks this is sort of humorous. And I'm trying to pull it to me.
Yeah, right. You're pulling the shark to you.
Right. That was an adventure.
One of many that you and Jimmy shared over the years.
One of many.
One of many. Anyway, well, I think it's great that the festival is going to be able to pay tribute to him this year. I mean, he certainly deserves it. Once he's enshrined in the ancestors, he's there forever.
He's always at the festival.
He's always at the festival. Are you going to be wearing your Jimmy Buffett Hawaiian shirts throughout the festival this year, do you think? Because people pay a lot of attention to your attire, so you're known for your colorful clothes. You're going to be going with the Buffett Hawaiian outfit?
On the last day.
Yeah.
When the band plays.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'll be the thing. Cool. I'm sure it'll be a lot of fun, but also an emotional day as well. So.
Yeah, it will be.
Well,
it's still emotional. I mean, it's hard to comprehend that he's gone.
Yeah.
Like I said before, not just gone to Tahiti.
Right. Right. But gone. Yeah. Well, he's going to live on through the spirit of the festival, though, for sure.
That's for sure.
Well, Quint, I really appreciate you coming on today and sharing these stories and talking about Jimmy. I look forward to seeing the Buffett Eyes Jazz Fest this year.
Buffett Eyes, baby.
All right. Well, thank you once again. Again, thanks to Quint Davis for coming on this week. My name is Keith Spera. Let's talk again next week.
Let's Talk with Keith Spera is underwritten by the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Foundation.